Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter, with Lorraine and Kathy for part 3 of our Ask a Crafter 40 marathon. We decided we'd answer every question, and it's going to take us a few days to do that. Well, we're all doing it at once, but we're going to upload it, and well, you know what I mean. So who has the next question? I'm completely lost and confused. So.
That would be me. Patty Hicks. I have played with gelatin plates for monoprinting, both the plain gelatine recipe and more permanent kind with glycerin. I had an issue with student-grade acrylics not laying down smoothly on the permanent plate, but instead sort of appeared a little snotty, like the tack of the plate was affected by the glycerin. Have you ever had this happen, and or do you know what the fix for this might be? The crafting acrylics work the same on both types of plates, but I was not as happy with the texture, feeling chalky, and was hoping with the acrylic in the tubes it would be less so. Another thing I noticed was the glycerin seemed to make the plate softer, as in not as stiff. My favorite so far is the non-glycerin recipe, but I'd like to figure out how to solve the issue with that paint and the permanent plate. Any advice is appreciated. And by the way, Ask a Crafter is one of my happy places every week. You guys are so much fun and so full of great advice. Thanks for all the inspiration.
Full of something, all right. Great advice. Wonderful. Well, the fix on the soft plate, I would cut it up, remelt it, and re-pour it. I think you probably just have your proportions a little off, or maybe it's a little humid in your area. That'll let some of the liquid evaporate, some of the water evaporate, and give you a tougher plate. So that's what I would do for that first. As for the student plate, paint, I think you're probably referring to paint in the tube, which isn't going to spread out as easily. And you may have gotten a tube of oils in with the mix of your acrylics. Maybe you didn't realize it, and that would definitely be snotty on your plate. It would resist the other paints and kind of chunk up and be stringy. So just first make sure that you have just acrylics. I think it's probably the just the consistency of it, not wanting to spread out. I would use the craft paints, and if you want a glossy look, go ahead and add some Mod Podge to it, because that will extend your paint, actually make it cost less to do your prints, and you'll have a sheen to it. And if you're working on white paper, it doesn't matter if your paint's a little transparent; it's gonna show up.
Okay, was that all that question?
Was that it?
Was it?
That was
Okay.
it. All right.
Teresa McKenzie says, Lindsay, help. I'm so disappointed.
You're walking out of the camera, Lorraine. You got to come back over here.
I am in December. I mean, like,
I think we should take that one from the top.
I think we tried this before.
And again, and again.
Take two.
I made my daughter what's called a redneck wine glass with a mason jar on top of a dollar store candlestick. I washed and let it air dry, used sandpaper, wiped away with alcohol the dust and let it dry, used Gorilla Glue, and it sat untouched until her 21st birthday, which was June. Went to pick it off the counter and it came apart. Did I use the wrong type of glue? Can you suggest another type of glue for a better glass adhesion? Thanks in advance for any suggestions, and hope you and your family enjoy your summer if it ever gets here.
Oh, tell me, well, it was 80, 90 degrees yesterday. I took the kids to the lake. I think you want E6000 or epoxy. So you can use like a Gorilla epoxy would work really well. It's a 2-part epoxy. You squeeze the equal parts. It comes in like a little plunger style. So you squish it out and you get equal parts of hardener and epoxy. You mix it up and you put that on the top of your candlestick, and then put the glass right on top of it. It'll set up in 5 minutes. It should be cured. Read the package, but I think it cures in an hour. That would probably be the best. It's going to stink. The stinky glues tend to work really well for glass. It tend to hold really well. E6000 would be the other one I would suggest, and you would do a thin layer on the bottom of the mason jar, a thin layer on the candlestick, let them set for 10 minutes, then press them together and let them cure 24 hours. So they're both that. Then E6000 is an epoxy. It's a 1-part epoxy, so you don't need to mix it. So what you need is an epoxy that's going to take care of that glass. So
Very good.
either one will work.
Okay, Jazz Monkification. Another brilliant Ask a Crafter. I have a few questions to fit in before you last Ask a Crafter for a while. I hope you don't mind.
I don't mind. Hope you don't mind watching 7 episodes so I can get through all these.
That's kind of the point. If you guys didn't have questions, she wouldn't have a show. I have a bit of a dilemma. I have just bought some new tiny fine brushes for detail. I was so excited, but now they've arrived and I realize they are watercolor brushes and I work in acrylic. Do you think these would still be okay if I use them with loose paint for detail areas, or would they ruin pretty fast?
Well, I'll answer that one first.
Yeah.
If they're synthetic brush, you'll be fine. If they're natural hair brush, they're probably going to get kind of floppy under the weight of the acrylic paint. So try them out. As long as you clean them up, they're fine. I would just keep them for acrylics. If they're synthetic, they'll be absolutely fine. Just try to, when you paint, well, let's show you on this paintbrush. The key is what ruins the paint, what ruins your brush with acrylics is the paint coming up to this metal part because it gets underneath the ferrule and it dries in there and that spreads apart all of these bristles. So instead of these bristles being tight together under there, they get spread apart. Another way to ruin a brush is to leave it in the water if it's a wood-handled brush because then the wood swells and it becomes loose in the ferrule. So this, we don't want any water, we don't want any paint, we don't want anything getting between the ferrule and the bristles and the handle of your brush. So as long as you keep your acrylic paint like to the bottom half of your brush, you're going to be fine. You're not going to ruin a brush by using acrylics, but most people just kind of cram the brush in there and they're not very careful, and so it's best just to keep them separate per medium. But I would say go ahead and use them, just keep that brush care in mind. And if they are a really soft brush, you're probably just going to have some, it's going to want to, your brush is going to want to bend instead of keeping you a nice sharp point. You might need to water your acrylics down a little bit more to get it to flow. But they're probably synthetic, they're probably fine.
Okay, and our next question is, I've stumbled upon some FW acrylic artist inks and some Winsor Newton inks in a drawer. What is the difference between these inks and their uses? Can they be mixed with acrylic paints and mediums? Also, could I use my accidental watercolor brushes for these inks?
Accidental watercolor brushes. I like that.
The inks look pretty old. Can they go bad? Sorry for such a lot of writing. A cheery wave to you all.
I think they're probably fine. Give them a shake. As long as they're still liquid in there and they all mix up, they'll be fine to use. You can mix. So the thing with water media is that you can really mix water media pretty freely. If something is an oil ink, then it's going to resist, or it might make your surface crackle and stuff. So it's water media, you can mix it freely. You might get some surprise effects from it, but I would say go ahead and try it. What do you got to lose? Just shake up those bottles good, and if the color mixes up, then you should be good to go. If it's chunky, then I probably wouldn't use it because some of the binder may have hardened up in there, and then your inks may not adhere to your paper. They may just kind of rinse off.
And the paintbrushes.
Yeah, use it. Yeah, go right ahead. Yeah, just try to keep the ink out of the ferrule. It's kind of harder to do with ink, but I would just try not to let it get in there. If you do, wash it immediately.
Okay, Nina says, hello, I'm so glad to have found your channel and weblog. Thanks for all you do. I hate to ask as you're already so generous with your time, but I've tried to find a comprehensive answer to this question and can't. It's so confusing to try to get a handle on. Would it be possible for you to compile a list of all your favorite paper types? Include brands and what is the best application for that sort of paper? I've read you mention several types of paper since I've been binge watching your videos and reading the blog.
Is that it?
Yeah,
okay. That's the gist of it. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I could rattle off a couple of my favorites. Watercolor paper. My favorite is Arches. The thing is, what's my favorite might not be your favorite. What's my favorite might be very expensive and not really suitable for a beginner, because it may not be as easy to use for a beginner, and it may not be the best thing to learn on. It's like nobody gives a kid a Ferrari and says, "Go ahead, learn to drive." I mean, that's
good.
That's I mean, so you'd be better off learning on a paper that's a little bit more forgiving, like has more sizing that you can lift away mistakes. Arches isn't the best for lifting away mistakes, but like as you get to be a better painter, you don't really need to lift up as much. You don't need to correct so much. So it's there's so many good papers out there. I would say my favorite for alcohol markers is Nina Solar White Classic Crest, 80 pound. My favorite watercolor paper is Arches. My favorite student watercolor paper is probably Canson Montville. My favorite glossy cardstock is Chrome Coat. There's just so much paper. My favorite pastel paper is Canson Me Tints. There's so much out there that I use that I don't know if I could compile a favorites list because everything has its purpose. I like to use cheap paper for layering and for the color. I wouldn't buy Stampin' Up! Cardstock for layering because it's so heavy. I'd use it for card bases. So it's every paper kind of has its own purpose. So yeah, that would be great to do. I wrote a couple articles for Scrap and Stamp Arts about watercolor paper and about cardstock. That would be a good article to reference. I think they archive their articles. So I know on like the Marvel main website, library websites usually have the Scott Publications articles archived, so you may be able to find it that way. But if you have a specific paper question, feel free to email me and I'll let you know what I think if you're wondering about a certain cardstock, because I can't even imagine to begin to list all my favorites. I have so many. Sorry, gosh, I should read these questions before I go ahead and answer them. Train wreck.
Oh, I got a good one. My next one's a good one, but I'll wait my turn.
all are mine are good.
Okay. Everyone's giving good questions. We're not judging.
Yeah, it's just that question was something I wanted to say.
Oh,
so.
okay. Is it about glycerin?
No.
How about color theory?
No color wheel.
Or chicken. It's not
No.
What about cowboys?
Hannah Lee says, what art journal do you recommend, and also things to draw?
I haven't really used that many art journals, but I really like the Canson Mixed Media XL pad. It's a big blue pad that I use in all my mixed media tutorials. I find the paper to be extremely resilient. It's 60 pound. It's it's a good weight. It's not super thick, but I haven't had like real big issues with buckling or the ink bleeding through to the other side. It's a nice size. I have the 9x12 size, and you have perforated sheets, so if you decide you want to frame something, you can tear it out and remove it from your journal easily. So that's my recommendation. I don't have a lot. I'm kind of new to the art journaling world, so I don't have as much experience with other papers for journaling, but I really like the Canson XL pad, and it's cheap. It's like, they start at like $7 or something, so they're not bad.
That's good.
Yep. Oriental Trading has the one I use for 10, the 9x12 size, so. Yep.
Okay, this Deb R says, I'd like to offer, this is what I had thought of. She said, my friend, she golfs in New York City, and I said, how'd you meet all these people that golf? She said, you go to meetup.com. Have you ever heard of that? I would have thought I was looking for a guy. Oh, I'm not interested.
Sounds sketchy to me.
Oh, yeah. She said, so she found golfers in the area. And this lady says meetup.com is a great way to find other crafters in your area. Because I did that when I went to Florida. I put in, after she told me, that's how I found all the people to...
Hey, did you find any weirdos?
No.
No weirdos. Awesome.
Imagine that. You'd think they just attract weirdos.
All the weirdos.
No. How would think to look under for weirdos in scrapbooking?
You think the weirdos hang out with the scrapbookers?
I think they might already be kind of incorporated in it.
Maybe. But at least we're not dangerous weirdos.
No. So,
that's
yeah,
good.
it is. It's really great. You can make cards, a scrapbook, knitting, crocheting.
Wow.
A knitting club.
Oh,
it's
neat.
great.
Oh, that's great.
There's no other way to you move into an area.
You can't really just knock on doors.
No, it's like, does anybody
drag a scrapbook in? You want a scrapbook?
Yes.
How about make cards? What are you doing?
No, nothing.
You kicked out of that neighborhood pretty quick.
Yeah, really. No, so that's really good.
That's a good
Maybe
idea.
if you brought my ties, we could do it.
Well, somebody had suggested renting a seer bus so all of us maniacs can go to down to the stamp show. It's like, that's a pretty good idea.
That would be
I
fun.
bet there'd be enough.
I bet there would.
I bet if we all met at the Cross
Well,
Insurance
we could
Center or
pick people
something.
up in New Hampshire too.
Oh,
Pick
yeah.
the location and grab people
grab
in New
them on the
Hampshire.
way down through.
That would be
Oh.
fun.
Yeah, that's an idea.
That would be cool.
What kind of bus ride would that be?
That poor bus driver
We
probably
wouldn't
need to
even
retire
need to
after
get to
that.
the stamp show.
Oh my gosh.
We have like big RVs with fold down tables so we can crop while we're riding. That'd be
great.
cool.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Okay, Maura 9. I'm wondering if you would consider an organizing series about how you store, organize your art and craft supplies. I need ideas, and you have great ideas.
Well, thanks so much. I actually have 4 craft room tours, and that goes over my organization. I always think my last one is the best one because, as you work in a space, you figure out ways to make it more efficient. So I think it's called Lindsay's Craft Room 2014, because I stopped calling it the Frugal Craft Room because I got people saying, well, Miss Thing, that's not frugal. Look at that. You've got like $300 worth of markers sitting right there on your table, And
Really?
But
So-
it's frugal And when you look
Yeah.
at how many years it took you to acquire that, and
Right.
the fact that you used them all.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, but you know, you get the haters. You get the
Oh, I
haters. So I saw.
know.
So the last one's called Lindsay's art room. I just went there for
Really?
time. Yep, and
That's interesting.
yeah. So if you go to that, you'll see how I'm storing everything currently. So because I tweak it and make it work so I can reach most of the things that I need where I'm sitting at my big table, and then as the least, if I don't use it that much, it gets stashed away in harder to reach spaces. So I have all my my easy to see, easy to reach things that I use a lot close at hand. But I do so many different crafts that there is a lot of different storage information there. So I would check out that video because that's pretty comprehensive. I think of what you might be using. I might have more of a particular item than you do, but you could still get an idea about how to store. I think the big thing is like with like. So all your die should be with your die cutter, and I find having my die cutter out is a huge help. If it's packed away, I'm not going to use it. So having it out is a big help. Having as much stuff as I can within reach and accessible is the best way to store it if you have the space and if you can do that.
Well, I think the thing that's really good about how you organize or store is kind of really how you do everything kind of without fear, is that you realize that you change with what you're doing, so you don't, whenever you organize, you don't think, oh, this is it, and it's got to be, I'm stuck with this forever. You realize that your life changes in what you're working on or what you're interested in or what you're doing for other people. So you just move things around until it works for you again.
Yep, everything's modular.
It's true. That's good.
Yeah, keep your eyes out at yard sales for interesting things that could store. My favorite is a record cabinet of record album cabinet that I keep all my cardstock in. It's fabulous. I got that for Mother's Day. It's kind of like a present to myself. My husband painted it for me. It was like $10 at a flea market. So yeah, use what you have and try to put your things together and refer to that video. I should put a link. Hopefully I'll remember to.
Yeah, and you do have a couple others because I think you talk about your ink, the ink thing, but not even just your annual things. But you have the ink one that you built and stuff about glitter and how you've switched over your markers and
I have a storage
to work with you for different seasons.
Yeah, I have a storage playlist on my channel. I believe if you go to the playlist, I think if you click the storage, you'll get those craft on tours and the ribbon rack organizer and the paper storage organizer and the different things like that. So let me look at. I think we've got time for. Oh yeah, we have a couple questions left on this video. I think.
Oh, okay. Is it my turn?
I think
Miranda Ellis. Hi, Lindsay. I have a question about the difference between twinkling H2Os and the metallic watercolor palette you used in the faux
Cloisonne.
Cloisonne?
Yeah.
Ooh. I have the watercolor palette. I got it from Oriental Trading, by the way, but haven't invested in the twinkling H2Os yet. Are they comparable or completely different? Do I need both?
You don't need both. They're very comparable. I think the reason the twinkling H2Os cost more is there's more product in a pot of that than in a palette per color. So, if you're getting a stack of 6 twinkling H2Os and they cost $15 versus the palette that costs $10, it's just as much more product in the pots of color. That's the difference. They seem to work pretty much the same. I think that the color releases from the palette a little easier than from the twinkling H2O pots because you've got to spray the pots, let them sit a few minutes, and then use them to get the color to release. But they're very comparable. I would say they're almost identical. And we'll just do one more question and we'll wrap up this video and go on to the next one.
Sonia Pickens. I love Ask the Crafter. Not happy about the summer break. Well, you won't really have one if you just watch her blog and see them every week.
Yeah, if you dole them out once a week, you'll be good.
Control,
Don't binge watch it.
Moderation.
For goodness sake.
I don't remember approving that link. I am still confused about copyrights and what I can and can't do. I know each company is different, but I'm not sure what to look for. Just for instance, if I took a piece of scrapbook, patterned paper, and doodled on it, could I sell that?
Do you mean, if you mean scan it and sell the file? No, because you're working on somebody's, you're making a copy of a copyrighted paper, even though you've altered it a little bit. So, if you wanted to, if your intention is to scan it and sell it, if you're making a card with that paper that you've doodled on, yes, you can. There's something called the first sale doctrine, and so basically what that states is once you buy something, you have the right to resell it or give it away. Oh. And so, there's so much gray area with that, but if you buy scrapbook paper and you make a set of cards with it, like a one-sheet wonder set of cards or something, and you sell a little gift set for $10, you're fine. You should be fine because you've just, you've bought that paper and you're selling it. You're not making copies of it and selling the copies or scanning it and sharing the file. You should be all right with that. The big thing is with licensed images like Disney, if it was like Disney scrapbook paper, where you should be okay with the first sale doctrine to do that. The fact that it's Disney and they are extreme pains in the behindy about this stuff, I probably wouldn't do it with that. But if it was like, a pattern paper from any sane company, I would be like, yeah, they want you to buy it and use it and come buy more.
Right.
So, and you should be protected by the first sale doctrine. But that's no mechanical reproduction. You can't make a card and then scan it and then copy it off or put it up on Cafe Press or something like that. That wouldn't be allowed. But never hurts to email the company and ask. Because pattern papers, they don't usually have the angel policies like stamp companies do. They're, I've never seen anybody get, in trouble for using pattern paper. In a card, or selling an old pattern paper at a yard sale. Or on eBay even. You can buy old scrapbook papers on eBay. Yeah. Nobody seems to care about that. They discontinue it every 6 months anyway. So what do they care? Most paper companies discontinue it every 6 months.
Yeah.
Well, then I have some seriously antique paper.
Yeah, antique paper.
All right, that camera just gets away from us. We're out of time, so we're going to say goodbye. Please give me a thumbs up and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next part of our Ask a Crafter 40 Marathon. Happy crafting!